speak tonight? Let's try to, we have a long agenda, so try to keep this in 5 minutes.
My name is Doug Champ. I live at 225 Bowen Street, Jamestown, New York. I don't know if anybody in this room knows that the final plan ruling for the American Rescue Plan is out. It was released on January 27th in the Federal Register. It changes a lot in terms of what the platform is going to be for this community. I had tried to send a email to all of the city council people with the attachment of the Federal Register. It's 117 pages long. However, inside of that is everything you need to conform and adhere to utilize these funds. The information, the opportunities, the possibilities are there. You will have to comply to the Treasury's commentary. They've gone ahead across this country in the last 8 or 9 months, got communication from all over. So you've got to go through it completely to understand what's in front of you. It's not going to be the same. Now, I don't know if the administration is aware of this or not, that there has been a final ruling put out. Happened, like I say, some weeks ago. So before you do anything, City Council has to understand the changes that are occurring there. It's now referred to as the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. It provides a lot that we've already gone over. Response to public health. Our platform is very limited, has been proposed to public health. It's all about public health now, to a large extent. Essential workers, awarding them bonus pay. Police, fire. One of the interesting things too is that the aspects of awarding impact outside of the tourism and travel and hospitality is a whole new ballgame. In other words, nothing new that hasn't been in play before the pandemic hit Jamestown is not subject to these funds. So if you're thinking about using cannabis or anything like that, it's not going to work. And there has to be justification in the industrial side, such things as a percentage of unemployment, revenue losses based on pandemic outcomes. If we do not follow these guidelines, and we do not have the metrics associated with them, we'll be non-compliant, the money will not be able to be used, and consequently waste and examination will be critical, and it can be, a point will be returned back to the Department of Treasury. Such things as a contract tonight for $100,000 has to go through a litany of congressional requirements in order for it to be successfully implemented. Not just local or state, but federal. That's the way the ball game is going to be played. I know it's a lot, but I would suggest strongly, I will send information, but it's the job of the administration to inform the City Council of the new American Rescue Plan, no longer interim, final report. It will make a big difference on your decision making and how you pursue it and what that will accomplish. It's no longer something that you think about, it's something you have to do. So I suggest that that could be all gone over. The other comment I have about the reevaluation, this is not the time and the place to reevaluate property in the city of Jamestown. The valuations have gone up artificially. It's like a phantom presence. Everything is worth more than it was a year or two ago, but it's not really worth what it should be. And I'm not sure that that money, other than the fact is that the ceiling of $10 million in terms of lost revenue was not something that the city went after. It was something that they were given. If they wanted to challenge that, they would have had to gone in through a whole different metrics to obtain that $10 million. So you can make an argument that reeval can come from those funds, but in essence, what you're doing in those funds is you're gonna be adding taxes on the people that are in the pandemic situation one way or not. And you all know with reval, 1/3 goes up, 1/3 stays the same, and 1/3 goes down, usually. I will send this information to you. It got kicked back. I want all city council to get it, and you're gonna have to go through it to really fully understand what you're asking for and what you wanna do with it.
Thank you.
Speaking of that, Ryan, you have given the new council member, Bill, copies of all the ARPA stuff today, or if not, can you certainly bring him up to speed on? And in addition, I've asked you in finance, but, provide an updated list of what we spent against the funding.
Sure.
Including the pending or bond amount.
Anyone else would like to address the council?
I'll speak. I'll keep my, couple minutes. Welcome, Councilman Reynolds. It was nice to meet you. I just want to ask one question, or I don't know if it's really a question. I did the proposal for the neighborhood liaison back in November, not realizing when the money would be available. I know that it was kind of talked about. I don't know how much it was talked about, but through the last month and a half, I haven't heard one thing mentioned about housing, about money from ARPA. And I was at every single meeting Eddie had, and that was something huge that the community wanted. And I know that I had said 2 people per ward. We could do 1, you know, cut it a little bit. You know, just maybe sit down and talk. I know Crystal and I have had a conversation about it, and there's some ideas that she had about something kind of similar. And I think that, you know, one suggestion I have about this hydrant problem, because it's a problem, is that when the weather is nice, you go to the person that lives by the hydrant, and you ask them, would you be willing to clean the hydrant, help the city? You know, if we tackle this problem, I saw the map. There's a lot of hydrants. I spoke with Mr. Amatuzo last night at a fire because my cousin's rental property burned last night. And I went to the scene, and, you know, I've driven around the city and I've seen how hydrants are, you know, buried. Is it anybody's fault? No. There's no way that, I think one of the firefighters said there's like 4,000. I don't know if that number is correct.
One every 800 feet.
But it looks like about 4,000.
1,960.
Yeah, that's a lot of hydrants. And if they're not or even if they're uncovered, they could be buried within a 24-hour period. So I know that it's a conversation, but you know, maybe it needs to be heightened a little bit, and maybe something that's done before the winter hits. So I just really would like that neighborhood liaison to be thought about and talked about between the council and Crystal and maybe the mayor again. Thank you.
Anyone else tonight? If not, we'll move on to our committees. Let's do housing first.
Sure, there were no resolutions, but we did have a presentation from Mary Maxwell from the Jamestown Renaissance Corporation. And she was presenting the program for 2022. She provided, and she has offered to send it to all the council members who may not have gotten it, but maps that they have identified very clearly. Houses are graded, every single property, with green being good, the lighter green kind of moderate, yellow being a house that definitely needs work, 4 and 5 and 6 are kind of could go either way, whether they could be fixed or not. The new program does not have any income requirements. they have to have clusters of at least 6 properties. And they have identified, it's astounding the number of properties. The last project they had in the Allen Park area indicated that Jamestown Renaissance will match 50% up to a certain amount. They said actually they invested about 30% and the homeowners invested around 70%. They have had a lot of success in these neighborhoods and they're looking for more. They're going to be focusing on the north side and quite an extensive area to try to improve the houses in that neighborhood. I'm sure Councilman Dilts knows is well aware of it. So they're trying to reach out, encouraging people, and as to your point, they want people to get out and do things, and that might be a good project right now for some of these proposing to become clusters, that they could go out and do some of the hydrants. And I know people have taken the initiative in my neighborhood, and they have cleaned up the hydrants, so kudos to those people following through on that. So anyway, I won't belabor it, but Mary, they do have an application. They do encourage people to get involved. They said that, you know, their biggest challenge right now is the number of contractors available. They had issues with the last project in the Allen Park area because the contractors, because of the pandemic, were delayed from projects in 2020, which pushed it out into 2021. So a lot of the homeowners were not able to complete the projects and they've extended the time frame. The issue that they're looking at now is that a lot of the contractors are getting older and they're retiring, and there aren't a lot of individuals coming up that are doing that kind of work. So this could be a struggle going forward on any home improvements, from painting to actually having to do structural work. So it's making it definitely more challenging, and they're looking at time. You know, the time is a huge factor in completing the projects and getting people on board, trying to get these finished. So with that, Mary is more than willing to entertain any questions. We didn't have a lot of time because of the 15 minutes. You could have gone on for a half an hour, but we were very limited tonight. So I encourage anyone who's in those areas that are being identified, they're trying to focus on a 5-year period, to please get involved, encourage your neighbors and those people to get on board. It's a great program, and anybody who's been in it has really appreciated the money and the investment that we're trying to make in our community to improve it. So that's all.
Yeah, she had reached out to me right around the holidays about the plans on the north side. I think it's like the Chestnut Spruce.
Well, I have it. It's around Spruce Street. It goes part of North Main Street. It extends Price Street and what's on that?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good sized square, and there are quite a few properties. 155 within that area.
I'll be a plan for that area.
I think the applications are due August of 2022.
Move on to finance committee.
Unfortunately, we didn't meet to discuss the resolutions. We had an executive session that took up the whole half hour, so, I'm gonna request, Jim, that these get replaced on the next week's agenda, but I know we have a couple items on here that we want to discuss and people are here to discuss, so, I think we'll address those accordingly. We're gonna skip to resolution number 2, the 4 firefighters. I was looking for more information, so Chief, if you can put that together maybe for next week, since you went in there as well. When are they planning to start? Again, these are all, just for clarification, these are all replacements for retirements, one that occurred the end of last year?
April of 21,
Okay, longer than that. And 1 and 3 that are occurring this year,
correct.
correct? So what is your scheduled time frame, and that if you could get that information or come to the meeting next week, that would be great. Next resolution, obviously the Parks Department, although we don't have an issue for it, obviously it gets voted on the end of the year too. That was a retirement as well. Number 4, Jeff, can you answer the question if this is an immediate need, or is this just?
The only urgency, I guess, is the put the order in for the equipment itself,
Okay,
you know, the timeline to get the coils.
so is 1 week gonna matter to you? I guess that's my question.
Yes, because the lead time in getting it up before the heating season,
Okay,
or the
so,
cooling season, I'm sorry.
so finance, this resolved that the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PE Director of Public Works and Acting Director of Parks, Recreation and Conservation, be and they hereby are authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with Stark ESCO, Southern Tier, Western New York, 2663 Third Avenue, Faulkner, New York, 14733, as per the EPC contract for the penthouse coil project to upgrade and improve the air quality, reliability, and controllability of the HVAC system for a total sum of $110,000 and no cents, subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. All in favor?
Aye, but I have a question. Will this help with the air exchange in this building as well? Will
With the
this
air?
help with the air exchange in the building to help better circulate the air?
No,
No,
it's purely the cooling.
just cooling? Is
Yeah.
there anything being done with the air to do a better air exchange in this building?
Well, we've identified some other things that we could do, but I can bring that back.
No, I'd appreciate it, because to Doug Champ's point, Mr. Champ's point, that is one of the issues with all of this, with the pandemic and COVID, is about air exchange and
We
air
presented
quality.
a project a little while back, I can rehash that and
Okay,
bring that back next week for you.
okay, thank you.
If I may add on to that, Councilman Barclay.
No, Karuba.
Excuse me, Karuba, sorry.
I won't take him's authority.
We did have to test the air ventilation as part of our agreement with the court. We are in compliance. They have a pretty high standard, and they're requiring all their buildings to have certain ventilation and certain, they're called MERV qualities, right, of their filtration system. So we did meet those qualifications. I don't know what the number is right offhand, I apologize, but we did have to do some testing with that after the pandemic started.
Is that through the whole building though, or is that in certain areas?
I believe it circulates through the whole building.
Okay, because I'd be interested if it was done just in the area where the court is, or if it's the whole building.
One of the things we discussed in Public Works is we do have a temperature requirement with the courts.
Mhm.
And if this chiller coil system were to go out, which we feel like it likely will,
Mhm.
we won't be able to meet those cooling
Yeah,
temperatures.
no, I understand they have strict requirements, but I just want to make sure we're also looking at the air quality and the air exchange,
Understood.
because that's critical.
You'll have that next week.
Mr. Mayor, the MERS requirements for the new ventilation systems should measure up to 15. That's a numerical number. They either go up or down, but now if you're not 15 or above, you're not compliant.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution 5, we're gonna push till next week. Resolution 6, and 7 are linked to the, American Rescue Plan Lost Revenue Funds to perform the real property revaluation. Again, Lisa was going to present finance and we got pushed, so I'm assuming you want her to report on that. Do you wanna do it now, or you want me to redo this last resolution?
Finish all the resolutions, you said.
Resolution 7 ties to that, and that's the contract with GAR, so he was the loan applicant for that process. Number 8 is for the offer of a purchase of a parcel located on Lakeview Avenue with an assessed value of $4,600 and a lot size of 53.6 feet by 110 feet in the amount of $200 and no cents. The only question had Marie brought up, she had a question about it, so I wanted to get that out before next week as well. So Marie?
I guess in the application, it said that my ownership will ensure the lot is probably mowed and weeded. So is that probably, or is it will be mowed and weeded? I'm serious, that was what was.
Properly spelling there.
All right, well, I just wanna make sure, because it could be probably, it could be possibly, or it could be maybe, or I don't.
We can certainly check, but obviously, once they take possession, then they would be subject to any type
Right,
of.
I understand that, but if this was the application, it wasn't questioned as to how it was, and this is how it was presented.
Understood.
There was an issue with that because, remember, there was a house.
Oh, I know, there's still part of a foundation there because there was a
We had
hope.
to get that mold, you
Yes.
know, gets on the list and sometimes. it
Well,
takes
there
time.
was a hope to do an energy efficient home using a geothermal heat pump, but that did not materialize.
We don't wanna go there.
Alright, alright. You were talking about energy and.
I know.
There's a lawyer and her in a contract word that is invalid, so probably.
I'm
incorrect. So
I'm
I'm
surprised
sorry.
nobody else did
Probably.
that. Yes.
The spell check didn't get it because it's either way.
It's
it's-
right spelled different. And that's the one I
Language.
worked with at Bush, who always said he spelled so bad that even the spell check thought those were actual words. And that was Mr. Howard. Informational report, we did not have either the presentation on the potential ARPA economic development projects and the further discussion on the DPW equipment. So,
You wanna do those in here? Or do you wanna do them?
they're presenting, they're here, so
Right.
yes, I don't know if Jeff and Pat wanna talk today, do you wanna
Yep.
add it to the end? Okay, so we'll start with Lisa, Jeff.
Hello. Cindy Bayer from Gar Associates had sent me this presentation that I wanted to cover with you. On the very first page, I did have two items that I wanted to make sure that you were all aware of. The 2006 reval included property data collection and new pictures because it had been 30 years since the last reval. The cost at the time was roughly $1 million. In preparation for a new revaluation, Adam Zarzinski, our appraiser, has accomplished taking new pictures of all the properties in the city. And the current property data is now 15 years old, is dangerously close to being outdated enough that it may be deemed unusable. Gar Associates had projected starting the project in January, which would allow for the project to be done in a timely manner. A March 1st start date has already shortened that timeline by 2 months, and unfortunately, any further delays will make it impossible to complete the project on time. This would push the start of the project off until January of 2023, with a finish date of July 2024. This would make the data that we have 18 years old, and the new pictures 2 years old. The further this is delayed, we may find that the cost is much higher due to the unusability of the current data and pictures. And if you wanted to go through this that she sent me, the next page is just the cover page.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm reading this. So, they've already gone in and done pictures?
Yes.
When did they do that?
When our new appraiser started, in order to get him acclimated to the city, we had him go do every street and do new pictures for everything. So he did that as part of his training.
I can tell you, people asked me and called me because they didn't know somebody was randomly going up and down the street. They didn't know who it was and they were taking pictures of their property.
He did have a sign in his vehicle that's bad, but he had several police complaints against him too, so
Yeah.
it is working.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the first few pages is just Gar talking about themselves basically and what they've done, and they were the ones that did our 2006 reval. Then we get into understanding the reassessment, and basically the premise is to create fair and equitable property assessments, so that property owners only pay their fair share. The next page is an illustration with 3 houses that are all assessed at $100,000. They're all in different towns, so they all have different equalization rates. So they're all paying a different amount in taxes, and they're assessed at different amounts. After you do the reval, they would all be worth $100,000, they would all be at 100% equalization rate, and they would all be paying the same amount in taxes. Just to illustrate what the reval would do in that case. The next page is the frequently asked question about I haven't done anything to my property in several years, and how can it be worth what you say it is? Basically, the premise is your new full value assessment should be what you would expect to receive if you sold your property in today's market. And properties do become worth more as you own them, The next one is, how can you fairly and accurately assess each property when you did not inspect each interior? What professional appraisers and confidence sales databases can produce reasonable results? They do have several opportunities to come in after we give them the values, to have it looked at and to show us what the interior looks like. And at that point, we would change if we felt that a change was necessary. The next page is the project timeline. And the page after that is just a sample project. When they did the town of Amherst, which is way bigger than us, they found 18.83% more assessed value. The informal hearings were only 6.4% of the total parcels. Grievances filed were only 4% of the total parcels. SCAR filings were 0.6%, and Article 7 filings were 0.4%. And the last page is just a summary, and then contact information for GAR. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Why aren't we doing this in-house? Why are we paying an outside entity all the time, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're not doing our own?
Because New York State has a very narrow amount of time that you can do all 15,000 parcels. And in my department now, it's just me, Adam, and a part-time secretary. So we couldn't do all 15,000 parcels in that 4-month period of time. It's just impossible. We wouldn't have the staff to do it.
The other question I have, and I know we've talked about it before when we weren't present, is we're, even in Jamestown, we're in an extremely hot housing market right now.
Mm-hmm.
Houses are selling in a matter of days in some cases. I would say probably because of the extremely low interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
People are taking advantage of that. I've heard in many cases of people actually like way overpaying for their houses over the current assessment now. And I guess there's some concerns from the citizens or those people that have purchased houses in the last couple of years that have technically overpaid. I can think of one person, the house was assessed at like 115 and they paid like 140 for it. Those people are concerned that the citizens, that the city's gonna come in and reassess their properties, and kind of penalize them, I guess, for overpaying for the properties because of this hot housing market, and they're going to be taxed accordingly. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people that they're concerned about that, and that could be a big difference in their tax bill if that takes place. What are your comments on that?
Well, and the only thing that could possibly not change is the fact that they're selling for more. So when are you gonna do it? If you put it off a year and they're still up there, then you'd have to put it off another year, and we're already at 15 years. So the other thing is the interest rate, or excuse me, the tax rate wouldn't come down because your, what's the word? The amount of money that you're raising would stay basically the same. The levy, thank you. The levy would stay the same, and then we would have more assessed value, so the tax rate would come down. So even if you're assessed higher, your bill still could be the same or less, depending on what the tax rate winds up being.
I've had the same comment from people who realize that they overpaid and are very concerned about the reval. I've also had a long-term realtor who's told me that this isn't the time because so many people are being hurt because of the pandemic, because they've had losses of income, and to go through and have their properties revalued right now would penalize them very dramatically, even though I know some will go up, some may go down, some, may stay the same. But I've heard the same comment, but this is someone who's been in the real estate business for over 30 years and spoke with me and just said that I have a lot of concerns about right now. Also, why don't we do this in-house? Because with all of the technology now that you can kind of see with computers and everything else, where the market is, where the houses are selling, how much they're selling for, that a lot of it probably in a year or two could be done internally and not pay for this and use this amount of money to pay an outside source. So I've heard the same thing that you're hearing, Jeff. And a little bit more to, and also telling people now's not the time to buy if you can wait, even though interest rates are low, because the market, people are overpaying for homes. So, it's in line with what you're hearing too.
I think people are starting to scramble now because there's talk with the feds, they're looking at possibly 6 to 7 rate hikes by the end of this year. So people are gonna be scrambling to buy, and the limited number of houses that are available, it's just gonna make that much worse, possibly perpetuating, people overpaying, more so. So I understand with the levy, but I still have concerns that our citizens that, people are always saying, move to Jamestown. People are moving to Jamestown now, and they're, technically overpaying for houses. And now we could potentially, punish them for, overpaying for those houses with higher taxes. In an ideal world, I understand what you're saying, that they could stay the same or go down. And I would like to believe that, but I have concerns that, we could potentially drive people out of the city, by this event.
Couldn't that happen regardless if we do a revaluation? You find out that somebody pays a certain amount for a house, couldn't their assessment go up?
No,
What's happening?
no. The welcome stranger law says we can't just assess somebody just because they paid more unless we do everybody all at the same time. So no, we can't do that. The only thing we can do is raise them a little bit. Like if we see the pictures on the internet and we can see that they've added a bathroom that they didn't tell us about, or items like that, we can add a little bit for that, but that's about it.
I was asking you, you said not going inside, people have asked you,
Yeah, we can't go inside.
no, it's just gonna be outside.
Yep.
Lisa, when will the tax rate be effective? Fall of 2024?
If we started it now, the final roll would be July 1st of '23, so the first bill would be September of '23.
School tax.
Oh,
I thought you had to push it back, sorry.
no. Any other questions?
There's been a lot of talk out there, we went through it, I'm not sure. You were, who in the room here lived through that first one? But that had been quite a few.
30 years,
30
yeah.
years. And, it was difficult, there were a lot of angst over it, I think it's difficult to do it at any time. I get the point about the pandemic, I think that's something to consider, I think, like you said, the inflated housing rate, who'd have thought 5 years ago that people would be fighting to buy houses in the city of Jamestown, overpaying for them? 5 years ago was the opposite problem. Houses would sit on the market for months and longer, and they would be devalued. I don't know, there's been a lot of people out there that have thought about the timing of it because of the pandemic and because of interest rates, and maybe taking a look at letting things cool a little bit after this happens, but, those are all things we have to consider. Like you said, some people are gonna make out on the positive side, some people it's not gonna affect very much, and some it's gonna affect. So, those are things that we have to consider. I'd like to push it back, but, even if it was 6 months, or, I don't know how much more it would cost. I don't know how much, the difference it would be if we did it 6 months down the road, or 8 months getting into the next year, starting a year from now versus this year, and how much difference that would make. But, that's something to look at.
We can certainly have some follow-up.
I just find it ironic that we're using roughly $300,000 of ARPA funding, which is technically taxpayers' money, to potentially possibly tax them more. I find that rather, the irony
The
of it.
last time we did the same thing, it was state money.
Well, to your point, the last, the person that I spoke with who's within real estate said this market right now compared to when Cummins came to this area, and people were fighting for properties in the city. That's how long ago. So to put it in perspective, that's what, this is comparable to the market then when Cummins moved into the area and people were scrambling, which could be what the north end of the town will experience with the Phoenix. They may be seeing the same thing.
I think one of the reasons why it went that long too is because of the cost.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how realistic it would be to do in-house with the staff that we have. And like I said, last time, you know, it cost about the same amount, didn't it?
It was about $1 million.
Oh, was it, because we had to go back and do the whole.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of money. I mean, it's something to think about, if you wanna put together some numbers or whatever.
Okay.
We'll certainly follow up on your question, and, obviously this is,
And-
further discussion as you guys go through.
And to Doug's point, you know, we just got this info, I don't know, I haven't read through, we just got it a couple hours ago. I wanna make sure that that's something we can utilize under
Mhm.
lost revenue, or,
It is under lost revenue.
okay, I wanna make sure that
Okay.
if we do go that route, that we're on strong footing and we can justify it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think it'll be a quick discussion with DOD, or with DPW, I mean.
Well,
No, I mean, to talk about this equipment.
You wanna do the equipment in there? You need to do the-
We can, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
And they can do that.
Go ahead, you can go on to DOD.
Yep.
Okay, so before I start my presentation, I'd like to introduce Dave Messenger from Full. I'm so sorry, Julie. Just give a quick, I guess, update on how things are going, and share some of your experiences with the pandemic and the impacts on your business. So, take it away.
There's a little handout that all of you should have for those of you that aren't familiar with Coldcraft. We've owned the company since 2003. We operated just down outside of the city limits for the first 8 or 9 years, and in 2012 we purchased the former Crawford warehouse and refurbished it and moved in there. It's an ideal manufacturing place for us, and we've had steady growth since then. We manufacture high-end, custom, and bespoke, we call it commercial office furniture. We do a lot of executive boardroom tables. We do a lot of reception desks, executive offices. We're also on New York State contract. We do a lot of work in colleges and universities. And we do a lot of libraries. We've done a lot in the area, including the Pendergast Library. We were doing fine until until COVID hit us, and it really impacted our sales, particularly the period of 8 weeks or so when we couldn't manufacture. We actually lost 2 major accounts. This was in March, I think, of 2020. We couldn't get designated as an essential business because of the work we're doing. So we ended up losing about 30% of our sales. As we got into 2021, we really needed to step back and say, okay, how do we need to kind of reassess who we are in our business so that we have long-term viability and can grow in the long term. And so we developed a strategic marketing plan. We started by honestly evaluating our strengths and weaknesses and our opportunities, focusing on how do we mitigate our weaknesses and take advantage of our opportunities. And as a result of that, in our strategic business plan, we have a few initiatives. The first one is building our brand awareness. We're a great little company. We do wonderful work, but not a lot of people know about us. We do all of the Bentley motor car showrooms in North and South America. We do many Fortune 500 companies, but even in Jamestown, I discover a lot of people haven't heard of us. And so our first initiative is to build our brand. And we've interviewed 5 or 6 marketing firms that can help us with trade advertising, the key trade journals that go out to the architects, interior designers that we deal with. They'll help us with target marketing. We also need to be more aggressive with social media, and that's part of our strategic plan on that side of it. So that's initiative number 1. Related to marketing, is an initiative of recognizing the new opportunity within the commercial market, which is the work from home executive. And that executive is looking for a custom solution that has all the features that he has in his office, functionally and style-wise and whatnot. So we've launched the Jagger Furniture brand with the idea of going after the lawyer and the accountant and the consultant and the stock trader and the insurance agent that are working out of their home, that receive guests and need to work comfortably and have those guests meet with them in a comfortable environment. That's the second part of the marketing strategy. We're working on product development for that. Operationally, we recognize also that the niche that we compete in, the whole commercial furniture market is $13 or $14 billion, but at the top end, it's only 154 million or something like that. And we need to be able to compete in more than just with the very most expensive and specialized furniture. So part of our strategy is to expand in the custom area, still doing custom, but into complete offices, so 40 to 100 office suites at a time. To do this, we need to invest in technology. And operationally, we're investing in a new CNC machining center, a new edge bander, material handling equipment, and other areas that will help us to reach our goal of becoming 30% more cost-effective than we are now when we do limited production runs. And we feel if we do this, we'll be successful in expanding into additional markets. We've started to price that way. We've actually last week made the commitment on this machinery because we're starting to get orders within this segment. We're going to be doing our Denver airport ticket counters, 90 of them, which is something we hadn't been able to do before. We're working with other companies on multi-story trading companies that are putting in offices. And so this equipment, so we kind of got the cart ahead of the horse a little bit because we needed to know whether we could be successful, so we priced, so assuming we had this equipment, and sure enough, it's, at least at this point, it's working. So that's the other part of our fundamental strategy. Along with that, we're implementing an aggressive value engineering program within the company to eliminate waste. We're also working to become certified by AWI, American Architectural Institute, so that we can be specified on projects that we weren't prior to that. And architects and specifiers often use the AWI standards, and so our goal by mid-year is to be certified by AWI. So in total this year, we're hoping to spend about $390,000 in equipment, and our marketing budget we think needs to be about $142,000 this year in order to really get launched on building our brand the way we want to do it. So that's the extent of what I have to say. I want to say also that we're very fortunate that we have a group of people there that's experienced and dedicated and craftsmen in the factory, and we are hiring right now. In the plan, we mentioned going from 25 to 41 over 4 years. Well, actually, based upon the reception that we've had over the past few months, we're hiring people. We'll be hiring 6 people we've hired 3 now and another 3 within the next few weeks. And I think 41 is going to happen possibly by early next year rather than out 4 years. And our growth looks like it's going to be much more aggressive than what we thought when we did the plan. So.
Can I ask you a question? Are you having any difficulty, I see the CNC equipment, getting CNC operators, or are you training them and kind of growing your own the skills?
Yeah, we're training them. We're obviously advertising for CNC operators. And as a matter of fact, a gentleman that has some CNC experience is starting with us in 2 weeks. He just gave us indication of that. But when we buy the machine, training comes with it.
Okay.
And we have a good 2 or 3 people that are trained on the CNC that can train new operators. So that's the way that'll happen. And the
Because
soft-
I know it's very difficult to get them, and that's why I said I'm glad to hear that you've been
It
able to
is,
meet that,
yeah.
because it's been a
And-
real problem for a
And
lot of.
our facility is all skilled positions. Because we do high-end furniture at the top of the market, nothing, it doesn't require a pretty significant level of skill, whether it's CNC operation, edge bander operation, or one of our cabinet builders, the craftsman.
Any other questions for Dave?
Do you mind my asking too, your pay scale? You must be paying them well to keep, and like, what's the longevity for your staff? I take it they're
Well,
there?
a lot of the folks that started with me in the beginning, back 18 years ago, are still with me. And our average seniority is probably 6, 7, or 8 years, something like that. And it'll come down as we hire more people, but I think we're a good place to work and people enjoy it. It's fun to make high-end furniture, and it's fun to make stuff that has a lot of style and fashion, and I think they enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
Stephanie and I had the great fortune of being able to take a tour. We spent 2 hours walking through. We had a great presentation from Dave and his team, and they showed us the floor where all the magic happens, and it was really, we were so impressed with the work that you do and the quality and the skill, and just the pride in the work that you do. And we're fortunate to have you here, and we appreciate you coming tonight and sharing.
Thank you. And
Your-
I would certainly say that if anybody wants to take a tour of our facility and see it, you're more than welcome to show it to you. It'll look a lot better when we get the new CNC in it.
It looked great. I was surprised at how really clean, and you think of a manufacturing facility and it was just pristine. Where we took a lot of pride in their workspaces, and we got the sense that it is a great place to work, so we appreciate you coming tonight.
That's the old manufacturing. New manufacturing is very clean and like
It
this,
is,
and that's a
it is.
misconception. You have to go
Yeah.
and see some of them.
We've had a
They're
couple of
very
tours
good.
now, and it's
It's
everywhere
not
we've
just
been
there.
has been that way.
Rand, go to any of these,
Yeah.
they're very well done.
All right, so without further ado, I will run through kind of our first grouping, if you will, of our proposed programs for rescue plan funding. And do you want me to like?
No,
Into the closet.
Okay, so as a reminder for everyone, American Rescue Plan funds must be used as directed by the U.S. Treasury Department and fall under eligible activities. This includes replacing public sector lost revenue, addressing negative economic impacts, water, sewer, broadband, housing, and mental health.
You're probably better off just standing over to the side there.
or give her you want a chair,
Somebody else.
Crystal? Here.
I can collect.
Thanks. I just don't want to be in the way of.
You're not in the way, I can see fine.
There's an empty chair over here, Dan.
I know. Actually, my empty chair's right there too, if you want.
Yeah, no, you're fine, I was gonna grab
Okay.
a chair so you could sit down.
Okay, so, in addition to that, funds must be obligated, by December 31st of 2024. Performance period is between March 3rd of 2021 and December 31st of 2026. When deploying ARPA funds, we took a lot into consideration, and when we were proposing programs, or starting to put together programs that we're going to propose and projects, there are a number of factors, community input that we considered, the feedback that we got from the public sessions, the report that the Community Foundation gave us, data that we've gathered over several months, We've also, we feel that learning from, with regard to economic development, learning from our businesses is really critical to making sure that we are putting together programs that will accomplish what ARPA is meant to do and will meet their critical needs. We hosted 3 business roundtable input sessions with manufacturers, restaurants, retail, professional service sectors. We did an online survey to gather input from businesses, and we toured a number of different large-scale manufacturers in the area. And we've had several one-on-one meetings and lots and lots of phone calls, and we've been very busy. We've taken everything that we've heard into consideration to develop these programs. And we also believe that they should be flexible enough to meet varying needs of our struggling businesses and strategic enough that they will meet the requirements set forth by the federal government, as well as address the critical needs of our community. And actually, whoops, I'll go back. So just this criteria here. So these are kind of the main things that when we are evaluating projects and prioritizing them, as we're looking at whether it's a program that is a grant program or any sort of project, that we'll be looking through the lens of equity, collaboration, impact, being able to leverage other resources that are already existing in the community, and sustainability. In addition to that, we will also be looking at, when we're evaluating programs that are applying, say they're applying for grant funds, what is their impact going to be on the workforce, whether it's retaining jobs or job creation, impact to their revenue, how will it help them whether recover or increase revenue, continue to sustain themselves, stabilize their financial recovery, and continue to improve. Innovation, so looking at ways that companies are diversifying what their business offerings might be, their new product lines at the state level. How are they adapting to meet today's needs, and to the next thing, making themselves more resilient. And then what sort of community benefit are they adding? So we'll look at projects and programs that will provide long-term community benefits, such as, but not limited to, building revitalization, redevelopment of vacant and or underutilized buildings and sites, improved tax revenues, access to workforce development and training opportunities, and on and on. And when looking at these programs and anyone who might be applying for funds, we want to make sure that we are tracking the best that we can, that we are making sure that we are measuring output and outcome. So if a business is the recipient of a grant, for instance, just making sure that we have those mechanisms in place. It may differ from grant to grant or program to program. It'll be customized, I guess, to each individual program. We also want to make sure that we are serving disproportionately impacted communities. And so how are we measuring that? Program-specific performance indicators will be developed. And of course, the given is making sure that they are meeting ARPA funding expenditure, that they fall within those categories that have been pre-established. So for programs specifically, the first one that we will talk about, building and property infrastructure improvements. We are recommending a program allocation of $1.5 million. And this will assist businesses with building and property repairs that will directly impact their operations by creating space or improving infrastructure to increase production, and by funding extraordinary expensive structural repairs, all of which supports opportunities for long-term growth and job creation. So for example, funding can be applied to roof repairs, elevators. We've heard a lot about elevators being a very costly repair, and something that a lot of our businesses are struggling with. Other structural improvements, basically anything that really contributes to the infrastructure of the building and the stability of the structure itself. Equipment and machine upgrades, so as Dave mentioned, needing to purchase new machinery, whether it's to help diversify their product offerings, or replace old machinery that has broken down or is on its, kind of last legs. We also recommended $1.5 million for this program. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. The next is for information technology upgrades, IT. We're recommending $750,000 to go into this category. Assisting businesses with information technology upgrades to support production, sales, and/or administration. System upgrades include, but are not limited to, sales and administrative support, software, CNC software, ERP software, all these acronyms, well beyond my understanding of technology, but basically any of the technology that really helps businesses to become more efficient and to increase product lines and whatever it is that they might need to do. And as we all know, they can be very expensive. Sales, marketing, and brand awareness, we recommended $500,000 into this category. This would assist with building capacity in sales, marketing, and brand awareness by providing funding for marketing consultants, marketing campaigns, providing funding to return sales team to pre-pandemic levels and or build capacity within sales. It's an upfront investment that is essential to manufacturers and other businesses who may have been forced to pivot their operations and products in response to the challenges of the pandemic. So where does that bring us? If we were to fund all of these last items that I just talked about, we would already be at $4,250,000 out of the $10 million that we have potentially allocated. So there's another, with the next grouping of projects, another $5,750,000. And as you'll see on the handout that I gave you, I think it's really important for us to be flexible in this. I think that if we allocate $1.5 million to a program and $750,000 to another, and we find out that that program that is only getting $750,000 is really popular, that we might want to give ourselves the ability to amend the allocation. And I would suggest just using the HUD amendment process that we have to do when we have to amend a HUD annual action plan. A length of time for community input to make sure that that amendment is supported, and then it would be a board and a council approval process. So I just say that because I don't want us to feel like we have to be locked into these dollar amounts. I think this is something that is, we don't know what businesses are going to, how much they're going to want for each category. So that's just a suggestion that I have. And I think, upcoming programs to be discussed at upcoming work sessions. And I listed them all out and just gave a description for you so that you kind of know what's coming, and just a brief description of what the programs will be and what's on the agenda for the next work session. Any questions?
Okay. I just, my one question is that are businesses going to have to pay this money back? for the city?
Not in these grant, or, well, they would be grant programs, so these
Okay,
are
they're
our
grant
programs, yep.
Also, is there a stipulation on how long the business has to stay in the city or open after the grant is given? Because I do know that there were, at least one business that was given $10,000 from the city and then left the city. So I don't wanna see that happen to the city, you know what I mean? I think that these are great things, that, you know, the businesses are really needing them and to continue on and, you know. So I just wondered if there was gonna be a kind of
Yeah.
a little rule.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and similar to our HUD programs, we're recommending, and I didn't go into that level of detail here, of course, but, that we have with our HUD programs a 5-year, they call it an anti-speculation agreement. So I think that we would consider making that a requirement. You know, maybe it's something that could be, so with that 5-year anti-speculation agreement, just for example, if, let's say somebody does a home program and they have their home renovated and rehabilitated, over 5 years period of time, after 5 years, they are free and clear, they don't have to pay that grant back. But if they move after a year, they have to pay back 75%, or all of it. If they move after 2, it's 75%, after 3, it's 50, 4, 25, and then 5. So, I think that that's something that we could, and probably
Yeah, cause you
would
don't want
want to
people to
make
just
sure.
think they can get
Yeah.
this money and then, you know, take off and go to another city and
Right.
open up business and remodel a whole new place, and, you know, I think that's very unfair.
So, I think that's something that we'll have to talk about further and in more detail when we kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of the programs, that ultimately will end up being selected to.
And these are Jamestown
as
businesses
payroll.
only.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I just want to make the point, before this platform is launched, we must review the new rules that are impacting everything now. The game's changed. The justification beyond tourism, hospitality, and travel requires a whole different characterization. So what you may have here may not be appropriate in the new rules.
I mean, I have some concerns, honestly, with some of these numbers, because in the manufacturing world, $1.5 million in machinery is not gonna last. Is not gonna extend very far. The same with $750 for a program evaluation. One company utilizes a total systems change, we've eaten up that $750 right now. So,
Yeah.
I guess the impact we're trying to make, I get what you're saying, but I think we might be shooting ourselves in the foot because we're only gonna help one company or 2 companies or whatever, and it's not what's intended with ARPA funding. So I do have some concerns. I mean, I know the cost of new equipment, I know the cost of new software. New technology is not cheap. So I guess I'm just gonna put it out there that I'm a little bit concerned with the funding for it.
I think that with, these programs, that maybe the intention will not be to fund the whole thing, right? So if they wanna purchase $300,000 worth of equipment or $1 million worth of equipment, maybe there's a percentage of that we would cover, and that they would have to come up with some kind of a match.
I guess I'm gonna go back to my struggle. You're asking us to vote and allocate a set fund, and I get you don't have the details, but that's critical in us asking to allocate funding, right?
Well, I do want to be very clear, so Crystal and her team, put this together so that we can solicit comments from you guys. This is not finalized.
I know that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, and we're absolutely looking for that feedback so that we can finalize and make a program that you guys can vote on. So we very much encourage, those types of
10
comments.
million is 35% of, even if we can do it, to Doug's point, we still have some homework to do as a council. That's 35% of the ARPA funding. Before this council votes on 35% of that funding, I think we owe it to understand what you're gonna do regardless.
Yes, but to that point, that's where, like, that feedback is gonna be really important for us to make sure that, I mean, we can keep coming back and having this conversation week after week after week, but if we get feedback that is, you know, comprehensive and, you know, feedback that we can actually write something that is gonna be something you can support. So I guess getting that information, my ask to you tonight is, take this, ask me lots of questions, call me, you know, let's talk through it, because there's other programs, and, you know, we wanna make sure that whatever we end up with at the end of the day is gonna meet ARPA, the requirements and the intention of ARPA and the critical needs of our community. And so there needs to be some engagement, in order for us to get to you what it is that you want from us.
Well, I think the wrinkle right now is the implication that the rules have changed with this last announcement, and since most of us haven't seen it yet, or been able to go through it, I think making any decisions until we know, because about the worst thing that could happen would be that we allocate funds and we spend them, and then we find out that they were not okay, and then there's a clawback, or we don't get reimbursed, period. And
So
that's going to be a more difficult problem.
Sure.
In that we don't have the money to cover it from anywhere else. So I think we've got to be very careful that we are within the guidelines of what is allowed and what isn't. We don't want disallowances to happen after we.
So I would agree, we all need to read this, but I also think we all need to read what
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we
Did you
just cannot afford it.
We did, yeah. Nothing in our plan was out of bounds of the new guidance, at the original master plan. Certainly the new guidance actually expanded, in many cases, what you could use the funding for. And to Doug's point, it actually did change the formula for lost revenue. It does allow the city to actually take more lost revenue than expected before. But we've kind of kept it flat so far. But certainly we do evaluate every single program against that. And as Finance Committee is aware, we are looking for a project manager for ARPA funds as well. And we do have resources with another company that Ryan has been in contact with to help us confirm that any project that we have is within compliance. I do want to point out, though, that the Treasury Department does not have an actual team so far that is reviewing things, but certainly we want to make sure everything is in compliance. And every project we presented so far is within the guidelines.
But that's concerning to me, when you say they don't have a team, so we could get 4 team members in there who could come at us and say it's not in compliance.
They do not have a department overseeing the funding. I do not know if there will be one, but at this point, we're unsure. But unfortunately, fortunately, every single municipality in the country has this funding.
I understand, but not every municipality is now $1 million short in the budget too, so.
Can I
So
ask?
you're saying the new guidelines actually became more liberal?
Yeah, yes.
Brian, do you agree with that statement?
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question. In terms of, were you looking at, or, you know, since cannabis has been brought up and we are not an opt-out community, have you been looking at that for ARPA funds?
No, there's the federally funding is a little gray, right? We do not want to mix any area that might not be federally allowed. So no funding is being provided for any type of cannabis operation.
All right, I wanted an answer to that because since
Yeah.
it's not legal at the federal level,
Certainly.
I thought you probably need to avoid that. So if you had concerns, because you haven't really said publicly where you stand with that, just want to make sure that we're staying out of that right now, because it's gonna be an issue if we go that route.
I will note, I did have a conversation with the Intergovernmental Affairs for the Cannabis Board. The governor's executive budget does include a fund that can be used for startup operations for cannabis. But at this time in our development office, no discussions have been had about any funding coming from the city or other opportunities. All of the folks that have approached us have their own separate funding sources. We don't intend on providing any type of funding.
Thank you.
Of course.
So comments, please, and we will make sure that anything that is prioritized by all of you, you want us to continue to develop, that it's cross-checked to make sure that it is in compliance before we bring it back for a full vote.
Okay, finally out of finance will come with the DOD thing, so that's it, from us. There was an update, will be updated in the entire, kind of ran out of time as David was. Not tonight. No, that'll be forthcoming, because we actually requested more information. But it was litigation.
So we'll move on to, we'll do the DPW equipment fire is under DPW.
Yep.
So public safety, Glenn?
Thank you. We had a presentation, from Patrick Morello, the owner of Collaborative Public Solution. Planning 4 events for the city of Jamestown this year. First one is an event, in the school, a little summer school event. Partner with Park Dump. Friday, June 24th and 25th. Music, Tuesday, vendors will be there. Funding will be Park Dump, so this will be held down at the level of the public. Fireworks. Second event is Christmas in July. This is the weekend of July 22nd and July 23rd. Also in partnership with Park Stunts, war fireworks. Saturday, Christmas in July in downtown Jamestown, decorating businesses and very out behind the common center. All craft vendors, some kind of food activities, Santa Claus, hopefully won't be fully dressed, it's hot and dry. Possibly if you want to basketball tournament. Live music as well. Third event would be the Labor Day weekend celebration, a traditional Labor Day festival in Building Park. I'll host that. So Saturday before, festival, downtown, Jamestown National Comedy Center, kids race downtown, live music, no things for kids, craft vendors, live music. And a brewery tasting outside Northwest Arena. North. And on Sunday is the Labor Day Festival, the traditional fair with music, vendors, and more fireworks. And the fourth event is pretty much where we started that last year, where they had Christmas parade, but they're going to expand to holiday weekend in Jamestown. Friday, December 2nd, and Saturday, December 3rd. Event buffets, including Christmas party at the National Arena. This is called Model Race. Movies, the County Center. Craft and food vendors downtown. Friday, I think it's also that weekend. And more fun. So they are working with the city on these events. They have their own sponsors. They're filing special event applications for each event. Pretty aggressive schedule of events. I think this is a good thing for Jamestown, good for the community and the residents. And we'll be hearing more as the applicant.
Can we get a because I don't think I saw it, I went through it, but the list of all the events with the fireworks, because I've gotten complaints from people, there are low noise fireworks as opposed to the ones that people typically get, and they're saying, can the city start looking at that since we do have a noise ordinance? Can people start looking at making a requirement that they use low noise fireworks? Just that, cause I don't know, I thought I heard 4 or 5 events that you're talking about
Four
fireworks.
events, I believe they're all gonna have fireworks. Before the events, the park fence are also gonna be doing another fireworks event because they didn't do it this past.
Right. No, I understand, but I'm just
Yeah.
asking if that can be a consideration by your committee.
Yeah.
Because people are complaining about, you know, problems with animals, people with PTSD, just in general, that it's not the issue of the lights, it's the issue of the noise and the sound.
Yeah, the ones that just go boom,
Right, that just constantly, because they sound like gunfire to a lot of people with PTSD.
Yeah, that's something we can have. All right, we had, 2 resolutions. The first was, Sergeant Adam McKinley, Detective Ralph Powers, Lieutenant of New York State Homeland Security Emergency Services Tactical Team Leadership Forum, held in Saratoga Springs, March 2nd through March 4th. This is to be paid by the Jamestown Police Department. Section 7B is general municipal laws. This is required training to state certified for police. Second resolution was suspending the hiring freeze and hiring 4 full-time firefighters till current and anticipated vacancies within the Jamestown Fire Department. That's the one vacancy was from April of last year, and 2 anticipated vacancies coming April of this year, and one I believe is June, July. Make a point that these are in the budget, current positions, one was zero last year, we just got hired, we do have a current list. We'll approve that resolution. And for information report, we did have a special event application. The almost annual state tax staff was not held last year, but will be held this year, on Saturday, March 12th. Downtown Jamestown, kind of around Northwest Arena. Well, we did, want to extend, appreciation to the firefighters. We had a rough weekend. People structure fires, unfatal fire. Thank them for their professionalism, their heroics. Melissa, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just mentioned during the meeting that I personally wanted to thank the Jamestown Fire Department for their work over the weekend. I know there was, over the last week, there's been a couple of car fires, and there's been a couple of house fires, and unfortunately, one of them was a fatal, and also in one of those fires, there was a 3-year-old child who was saved by the Jamestown Fire Department, and also due to the quick actions of our police chief, Timothy Jackson, along with a patrolman, Matthew Reinhardt, and a medic who, I don't know the name of the medic, through the quick action of the Jamestown Fire Department, and then also those 3 gentlemen, they made a very quick possible life-saving decision to transport that child to UTMC Hammett. And from what I understand, the child was transferred to another facility and is still not out of danger, but obviously their life was saved as a result of a joint effort between the Jamestown Fire Department and also the Jamestown Police Department. So, like I said in the other meeting, all the people involved that day were true heroes in my opinion.
Any questions on that?
No question on that, but I did get a call about a serious issue involving commercial contractors doing plowing, and one in particular on the corner of Prendergast and 6th. There was a wall of snow that's about 10 feet high, no kidding, at 4 o'clock this afternoon as I drove by. And they are saying that they are pushing the snow onto the sidewalk now, which is creating an issue for public safety and children walking, people walking into the street. Anyone who hasn't seen it, I have never seen a snow pile as high as it is on that corner. And by the time I drove by and got home, I had a call from someone complaining about the very fact that the snow was so high, you can't really see around the corner, and it's also pushed onto the sidewalk, and that's only one example. There are many others, and so they want to know what the city plans to do to either get after these individuals who are blocking the sidewalk by the way they are plowing these properties, which are then creating a problem for the city. I'm not talking about the city plows, I'm talking about private parking lots. And they would like to know what the city plans to do. Are these people going to get ticketed, or how we're going to enforce it? But it's creating a problem because then the individuals cannot get the snow removed. That's not something that an individual, if it was in front of their property, near their property, that they could deal with. So, just asking. And it's gonna be an ongoing issue right now. We've got more snow than we can handle, but the problem is the private contractors.
We've reached out to that property owner, that contractor this afternoon,
Okay.
as well as numerous other
Mhm.
situations similar to that. Unfortunately, there's no place to push the snow, and they're using the sidewalk as the go-to place.
I know, but when we talk about the public safety issue, people walking into the street, and I know, Jeff, but I'm just saying, they've gotta do something, because this is not a good situation. When we talk about public safety, somebody's gonna get hurt, you know, if you have a disability and you have to go through that because you don't drive, it's impossible to use a sidewalk. They're forcing people to go out into traffic, and when we've got a lot of slush, it's very difficult, but it's a problem because a lot of people walk in that area.
We agree.
On my notes, a lot of times they may not even know what they're doing, they're just following and they go.
That one's pretty hard not to see, Tony.
Well, I know, I'm just saying, they have a lot of snow, there's no place to put it, so they plow it. Their job is to plow the parking lot, and then they go to the next one, so as long as you put them on notice, even private contractors in the street do the same thing, they plow a driveway, and they push it across the street, and then, it's all over town. I don't know what, besides putting them on notice, please do not do that, be careful when you're plowing, it's a problem when you have this much snow, and the city has the same problem. All around the city, when they plow the streets, it goes right back up on people's sidewalks, and we have to go back out and do it again, but they can't stop, they have to do it, so. I don't know what the answer is, other than just telling people to be careful when a private contractor to make sure that they don't push it that far back and block the sidewalks, I guess.
Part of the problem is the private contractors are having a hard time finding places to dump as well.
Right.
They wanna go to where we're dumping, and we're running out of space, we're picking up a lot of snow in the past 2 weeks.
What about the year go through there?
No, God, no.
I don't know.
Tank will work.
So it's basically.
Drive down there and just take a look. I've never seen
Basically,
anything
it's
that
just
high.
a hidden grill is really got too.
Yeah, it's over 10 feet high.
It's tough, it's a bad problem.
Well, I think we need to do something more than just, somehow these people have to be made aware. And they have to know we're pushing it out there. When you drive by, you can see it.
It's your rating. Good man.
You said it a couple of times, so I wanted to make sure.
Last but not least.
Okay. One resolution here on, where on January 22nd, 2002, the Jamestown City Council adopted a resolution number 200-201, CO3, that effective immediately and under further notice institute a hiring freeze for the city of Jamestown. And whereas on November 20th, 2006, the Jamestown City Council adopted a resolution number 200 611 B17 to extend the freeze to any change in employment from part-time to full-time status, and whereas it has become apparent with the Parks and Rec Department in an effort to effectively manage the city's day-to-day responsibilities in a cost-efficient manner, it is the city of Jamestown's best interest to lift the hiring freeze for a certain position now and there be it. Resolved that effective immediately, the Jamestown City Council hereby suspends the hiring freeze instituted by Resolution number 200-201 CO3 and authorize the filing of the following position due to the essential nature of the position, and that is a labor in the Parks and Rec and Conservation Department. And this position is vacant as a result of a retirement. And this resolution also appears in the finance agenda. And number 2, resolve that the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PD Director of Public Works and Acting Director of Parks and Rec and Conservation, be and they hereby are authorized to and directed to enter into an agreement with Stark ES Company, Southern Tier, Western New York, 2663 3rd Avenue, Faulkner, New York, 14733, as per the EPC contract for the Penthouse Coil Project to upgrade and improve the air quality, reliability, and controllability of the HVAC system for a total sum of $110,000 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. And it be further resolved that the City of Jamestown City Council hereby designates $110,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan Act loss recovery funds for the purpose of funding a replacement for the city penthouse coil. And this resolution also appears in the finance agenda. And as far as and then there's gonna be a discussion if there is going to be on DPW equipment priorities.
After the last meeting, you asked us to come back and review the equipment that we were proposing. Specifically, I think the sweeper was really the issue. Matt, go ahead.
Well, yes, as we recently met, again, Jeff and I met with the department managers for Public Works, and they have expressed their strong desire to keep the sweeper as one of their pieces of equipment. Based on the list that I provided to all of you back when we began these ARPA discussions, I can make a strong case for any piece on here very easily. However, based on the discussions we've had and the feedback I've received from all of you, it seems clear that the criteria really is to identify those pieces of equipment that are old age and or obsolete. So with that, if you were to ask me, is that particular sweeper in danger of becoming obsolete right this moment? I gotta honestly tell you, no, it isn't. However, that's where I've really left it at this point. Jeff, is there anything else you wanted to add about that?
No, I mean, it's, as we discussed at the last meeting, I mean, it is a very essential piece of equipment. It probably, I don't wanna say it's one of the ones that breaks down all the time because of the wear and tear that's on that equipment. And that's why we felt it was the most essential to keep in mind. But Pat said, I mean, every piece of equipment on there is, needed.
Right, we did sit down last week and we did identify an alternate piece that could be purchased in place of that.
I would like to know the alternate piece, because on this list, I'm looking at a 1999 piece of equipment.
Yeah, and that actually, that is, yeah, the one you're pointing to is
Yeah.
one that we did in fact identify as.
I mean, to me, I know the validity and importance of the street sweeper, I'm not trying to take that away from you, But if you're telling me that you can still get parts and push that for another year, maybe it isn't the most critical. Can you tell me, I guess, I know I asked you last week that parts were still available for it and it is repairable. Obviously, this dump truck isn't a cheap, it's not like we're cutting you hundreds of thousands in equipment, I guess, but
I'm not arguing.
I mean, the dump truck to me, it's a 1999. I mean, we have we replaced the 96 and the 2005, but we still have a 2003, a 1999, a 2003. I guess my opinion is if you're looking to replace outdated equipment and stuff you can't repair, is this truck one you can't get parts for?
Yes, it is.
Not to micromanage you, but I mean, there's been the complaint for years on this council that, we've got 50-year-old equipment we're sitting out there, and that to me seems like a better choice, but I guess, Pat, if you're the fleet manager and you would recommend one or the other, what would you recommend?
Based on those factors alone, I
Mhm.
would recommend the 99 because of the fact that it's the age of it and the condition that that one is in. And I will add that it is one that the managers did agree would be a viable alternative, so.
I guess my concern is we're spending the ARPA money, which is the goal, I get that, I understand it. We're spending it like crazy, and you can vouch for years ago when we had the emergency of a street sweeper, and what's gonna happen is Jeff could come to us next month and say, listen, I gotta take it out of contingency because this dump truck really went, and we made a bad decision to not replace the loader's equipment that we can't get parts for.
I think you have to also realize too that, this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we can't obviously replace everything on your list. So, I mean, we have to kind of rely on you guys to decide, this is your one shot, and you might have to wait. So you have to prioritize what is the most important piece of equipment for you that you're gonna need in the short term and down the road. And knowing full well that with the tight budgets we've had over the years, that you go long stretches without buying pieces of equipment. And next time we get pieces of equipment, we're probably gonna have to bond for them. And so that's something to consider. What's the most expensive piece? What's the most needed piece? What's utilized the most? Knowing full well, we have a limited amount of money, that you're gonna be allotted to spend, and what's the biggest bang for the buck that you're gonna have to spend right now. And that's kinda where
I
we're
guess
at.
it boils down to me, is Pat is our fleet manager, and that's what we're paying for, we have to trust his judgment. And I'll be the one gonna recommend that we trust his judgment.
Yeah, I looked at that 99 and that's fairly roadworthy.
Fairly what?
Roadworthy.
Fairly roadworthy.
I believe you.
Even when you step on the steps, they're rusted out completely.
I believe it.
Yeah.
But you're right about the bonding. We bonded $2.5 million for fire trucks and refurbishment. I bet you if we knew now, but we'd be looking at buying them outright as opposed to bonding. So you're right, we're gonna be looking at bonding anything that we don't purchase now in the future because we don't have the funds.
We probably spend about 28 million on it.
On equipment.
No question.
Yeah,
Is there an agreement?
I didn't say we were. You saw it sold?
Maybe just sit down.
We're gonna have a brawl here.
We tried Crystal.
I mean, I guess I don't wanna micromanage them. They need to decide what's important to them, what do you guys need, and what's the best thing for the buck? What's the immediate need?
Sounds like good.
Right? Is there anything else?
As far as the street sweeper, they have two of them, right? And they feel that you need to
Yeah,
up and run.
definitely have to have two.
You can't run one in the whole city.
No.
That was the question I had.
It's just a matter of older equipment,
Mhm.
there's something we can buy parts for, not versus not. In my opinion.
Mhm.
Just what are the parts that break down on something like that, and how much do they cost? Just rough idea. If something was to go on the street sweeper that you'd have to repair, that's the main problem, I don't know, just asking.
Street sweeper has a lot of moving parts, of course, and they're all very proprietary. so it isn't like you can just simply go to the parts store. So they are expensive, but I guess I would point out in full disclosure that just sweeping streets in general is expensive. Even our newest one has pieces that break that have already broken as well. So it's an ongoing battle, but they're,
But ballpark, give me an idea, are we talking 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, what are you talking about?
Says an annual cost of 29.
yeah, so
Okay,
as an annual cost, yeah, about
okay.
So
So
the dump truck
29,000.
alone is 18 and we still can't even repair it.
Right, and that's what I'm, you know, but if you're talking about safety, that you might go through the steps trying to get into the truck and it's not roadworthy, then why are we even thinking about putting that out on the road?
Prepare it next year when we come back saying we need the sweepers on.
I understand, but right now,
You guys been,
I guess from the personal injury standpoint, if somebody's working and steps and falls, then that's gonna be an issue.
this is the dying soldier today. Right? I mean,
Guys, I would move.
they got $7 million worth of equipment, we're, oh, life support.
Seems to be the case in every department. A year ago, it was 3 fire trucks, so.
Just throwing it out there.
I get it.
My job to keep the new folks informed.
Okay, good.
There's nothing else from me.
All right. Anything else come before the council before we turn it over to the mayor? Okay, yours?
Okay, just a couple updates, one executive session item. First off, Bill, welcome. You've been very quiet tonight.
That's not gonna last.
Hope you enjoyed tonight's only night.
What's your executive session?
Executive session is one personnel item.
I also have one, need for one for personnel. Request that mine go last.
Okay.
Just a couple items. Bill, your information will go live on the website probably tomorrow morning, so I feel for you. But the other couple items I do wanted to note for you all is next weekend into Monday and Tuesday, I will be at NICOM, just a heads up, so I will not be here at the next work session. It is NICOM's lobbying day, so we will be up at the Capitol lobbying for various things that impact the work we do here in the city. Strangely enough, they scheduled NICOM on the Super Bowl day and Valentine's Day, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. but Maybe. Very, very well could be. There'll be people at home, so we'll see. It is indeed. The other couple other items, just to let the council know, we are working with the school district on both plowing routes, safe routes to schools, as well as the traffic study near Purcell. We did meet with the school administrators to get some more information as we continue through that process. So should have some more for you shortly as we go along to try to solve some of those issues that have been popping up. We are also working with the New York State DOT on school zone improvements. I know that is an area that has been identified. If you all remember, we did put a contract through to work with a consultant, Wendell, which has a lot of experience working with transportation, school zones, and others. So we are continuing to work with them on some school zone improvements as well as some other road improvements. We have received a small allotment of test kits as well from New York State. So we are working to try to find ways to start to hand those out somewhere that's not like the Hunger Games like we had last time. But I appreciate all the council members that came out and was able to hand out test kits. We do have another small allotment for that, and so we'll be getting you guys some more information about it as soon as we kind of figure out what that's going to be. Kind of want to reduce the number of sites down a little bit and probably try to provide some more at each site. Other than that, I just have one personnel item, as noted, and we'll continue forward. Can't believe we're already into February.
We have a motion to go into executive session. Second. All in favor?
No action, excuse me, no actions to be taken, if we could, please have Jeff, stay, Ryan, and Jen are also welcome to stay.